This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, April 10th. Yes, we're into the double digits of April already. Not long till we all have to have those taxes filed. So much fun, isn't it? Tax filing season. And we've had a lot of questions this week about different options that may exist for filing. But we'll stay away from taxes today because, geez, I don't want to ruin the weekend. First time I have heard of a Newfoundland weekend in a while that we're not worried about big weather. I mean, we know last weekend, Easter, we got all that snow. So, again, I'm not going to jinx it. I'm hoping everybody gets some good weather and can get out and enjoy this weekend. And maybe we're past the worst of it all. Lots going on, lots to talk about. Maybe let's say, look up. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Artemis 2. Well, that could be the case. Let's hope it is, in fact, around 9:37 Newfoundland time. That's when it is expected that the 4 astronauts aboard Artemis 2 are going to splash down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego. The return to Earth is pretty harrowing. They reach speeds of nearly 40,000 kilometers an hour, with the capsule, if you can believe this, heating to 3,000 degrees Celsius. Now imagine what that feels like. According to what I'm reading here to you, their bodies will be going through almost 4 Gs. That means that they will feel 4 times heavier than normal. It's like being crushed. It's not for the faint of heart. No wonder these astronauts are so well conditioned. Some might say it's like hosting Open Line with the heat and the speed at which things happen. But I'm no astronaut, and I don't know if I'm much of an Open Line host. I try. I had to work all of that in. But look for that tonight. Of course, lots of people will be watching a pretty incredible voyage they have all had. I'm sure you saw the little skit 2 days ago, or I guess it was a day ago, when the Artemis astronauts were talking to the Prime Minister, and they had a great debate about did they like Nutella, which they carry around with them, or maple syrup, which would be a bit sticky in space if you think about that, floating around in globs. At least Nutella, you can carve it up. The winner was maple syrup, of course, with Canadian Jeremy Hansen, and the Americans didn't really have anything. Nutella's not really theirs. It's more of a European thing, though apparently made in Canada. Or maple syrup. There were no turdunkins on the plane, a very famous American Thanksgiving delicacy made immortal by the late, great John Madden, who my co-pilot on our journey today, Dave Williams, knows well. John, of course, great football coach, but imagine a turdunkin in space. Ooh, my goodness. Speaking of space, people are still spacing out on former Premier Williams' donation to the PCs during the last, or donations during the last election campaign. You've probably heard the former premier spoke to some of this yesterday. He talks about how that investment and some of the campaigning he did and speaking out he considers it a pretty good achievement, a very good achievement, one of the top achievements in his life to stop or appear to stop. It's not dead yet, but it may as well be for all intents and purposes. The MOU that was signed by the Liberal government around Churchill Falls with the outgoing premier of Quebec. So the premier has spoken on all of that. Former premier spoken on all of that. As you would expect, he's not stepping back. And again, whether you like Danny, you don't like Danny, you feel he should have been involved, you don't feel he should have been involved, the issue is not that. It's the lack of rules. It's the lack of rules. If you're angry that he could spend $46,000, well, then encourage your politicians to put in rules that prevent that from happening. Because we are in the dark age. We're talking about space, but go before there was space travel. We're in the dark ages when it comes to political finance rules in Newfoundland and Labrador. We virtually have none, so to speak. As I've repeatedly said in the last couple of days, as this has been a story, they exist federally. They exist in most every province that I'm aware of. Federally, you can't donate corporately. Unions can't donate in the Newfoundland election. And again, no judgment on my part. They're able to donate, and they believe in the NDP, so they donate it. The Newfoundland Labrador Federation of Labor and other unions donate it. Large developers donated to the Liberals. Hey, again, fair on them. There's nothing preventing them from doing that. Large fisheries interests donated to both parties. And I should say developers also donated to the Conservatives. So focus on Danny, flair on Danny, but as is often the case in Newfoundland and Labrador, we're going at solving the problem the wrong way. That said, we had a very passionate, and I've got a lot of regard for him, Ben Oates on yesterday from Force Newfoundland, and they've put out some more today, and they've asked the former premier before and again to walk through the MOU and show where the faults are. And again, I love their fight. It's important that young Newfoundlanders are fighting for their future. But this has revived the whole debate, and it's getting lost. The debate should be about where we're going next. If financing is an issue, then let's deal with that. If the deal is an issue, we're supposed to have a referendum as far as I know. So we'll see where that all goes. Yeah, it's true. I think the Progressive Conservative government could do a bit more to speak about where they are on that. There is a review panel. For Premier Williams, they established a new review panel. There had previously been a review panel. And again, there's some legitimate criticism around whether you need two review panels or not, but we have them, so whatever. They exist now. Former Premier Williams has put his submission into the current review panel. That was released publicly yesterday, so you can have a look at all of that. Speaking of the provincial government, no date yet for a budget date. According to our news team, our top-notch news team, this is the latest we have gone for a budget submission in a very long time. Between 2022 and 2025, the Liberal government tabled its budgets as early as March 21st and as late as April 9th. Will be well past April 9th. The province is, the legislature, I should say, House of Assembly is on Easter break until Tuesday, April 21st. Again, I think part of that may be waiting to see what is happening with the federal government. They, too, are also going to come out with an economic statement. They brought their budget down in November. I'm not sure that you, the public, but you tell me, your show, get fussed about the date of the budget. I think you're going to be more interested in what's in the budget and whether there is, as leaders are saying, an awareness of how tough it is for you out there, how tough it is to fuel your cars, to feed your families, to find housing and shelter. That's probably what's more important, but we'll watch all of that as it unfolds. Just going to stay in the political realm. Two more political things to flag for you. The Liberals, as we said yesterday, are gathering in Montreal. No floor crossing yesterday. They're certainly in a giddy mood. They got a floor crosser. Is there another one to pop beforehand? There's a CBC story out there today, a national story naming unnamed sources that say there are up to 9 Conservative MPs that are in talks with the Liberals to cross the floor. Of course, there's those by-elections coming on Monday, 2 of which are almost certain to go to the Liberals come Monday evening. Mark Carney will, barring some intergalactic, unexpected event, have a majority government. A little bit of chatter on this program yesterday about whether or not floor crossing is a good thing and how it should be handled, and the camps were pretty evenly divided. I talked to Alex Marlin on the Vashi Capello show yesterday because I'm doing double duty on the guest hosting, and Alex made the point that what we really should look at when it comes to floor crossing is a 30-day hold period. Hold is my description, the 30-day period is his, but you announce your intent. For 30 days, you consult your your constituents and other people, and you don't actually make the move for 30 days. Now, as I said to Alex, I doubt somebody's going to change their mind, but maybe they do, and maybe that allows the public debate to focus on that. Alex was of the view by-elections aren't necessarily the best remedy, because, again, I point out, if we just look at the most recent by-election we had with Mark Carney, that cost Pierre Poilievre, that cost $2 million. So what do you think about all of that? Do you expect more moves to happen with the federal Liberals this weekend? Are you perturbed they're going to get a majority this way? Some people say they are. Pierre Poilievre is certainly trying to drive that message, though Mr. Poilievre is probably best served to watch his back as people look to walk away and make his future more uncertain. We're going to talk to provincial Liberal leader John Hogan, who is at the Montreal Convention at some point this morning, to get his take on things, so stand by for that. How can we not talk in this segment about governments, about the Donald? Oh, my goodness. Well, two aspects of that. First, his allies, those who he's courted. You know, many of you will know these names: Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all loud, vocal, far-right supporters of Trump, have come out and criticized him for the war on Iran, have said he's totally off base, and this is wrong, and this is a huge misjudgment. Of course, the president has fired back, basically calling them a cabal of idiots. Oh my, when the far right starts fighting with each other and the president starts yelling at all those people who he felt were so important in his victory, that ain't a good sign for him. Maybe it's a good sign for the rest of us. Just after the break, before we take some calls, I was able to do this really fascinating interview yesterday with a fellow by the name of Aaron David Miller. Now, he used to work in the United States State Department for the Middle East, and we had a chat about what is really going on in Iran and Lebanon, and is the ceasefire going to hold? If you've listened to various newscasts that are out there today, there are lots of questions about whether the ceasefire is going to hold. We'll talk about that, but what you get from Aaron David Miller is the firm position that the U.S. has actually lost in Iran. You'll want to hear that discussion. I know it's international news, but it all connects to us. I mean, price of fuel. Speaking of which, there's been some relief at the pumps, and it's being attributed to the apparent ceasefire in the Middle East. But listen to that conversation with Aaron David Miller. Now, before we do go to break, how about that young Cole Caulfield? Hey, he gets his 50th goal last night. For all you ardent Montreal Canadiens fans, and I know there are quite a few of you out there, you must be pretty pumped. Canadiens also won the game 2-1. Prime Minister was there. He met our own Alex Newhook apparently after the game, along with Nick Suzuki and the rest of them. Whether you love the Canadiens, you don't love the Canadiens, and there's some pretty defined camps, it's just awesome for hockey to see them being revitalized and energized, and to have a Newfoundlander and Labradorian front and center in all of that. Alex is a big part of the Canadiens' success at the moment. He's part of that team that can play such wide open, fun hockey, and I don't underestimate these guys going into the playoffs. They could end up in the number 2 seed. They look good. And let us remember, if you don't remember your history, that the last Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup was who? The Montreal Canadiens in 1993. I don't know. I don't want to add too much hype on all of this, but I love seeing all that. We're going to be joined a little later on by Steve Callahan. Steve often joins me on my show, which I'm so delighted for, to talk about Caulfield, and also a Newfoundlander, Clark Bishop, who's been up and down in the NHL, but he's about to play his 500th American Hockey League game. That in and of itself is a fine achievement. So lots of positive things to celebrate. We can talk about whatever you want today on this Friday, but we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we're going to listen to that conversation with Aaron David Miller about what is going on in Iran. I'm Tim Powers, back momentarily. Oh, welcome, Tim Powers, in today for the day. All right, Gary, Harry, and Connie, hang on. You're going to be right up after this we're going to take a break, but right after this conversation with Aaron David Miller. Here's a chat I had with Aaron David Miller yesterday about all that is going on in Iran and around the ceasefire. Have a listen. I think you'll find it informative. Well, we continue to watch developments in and around Iran as questions still exist as to whether or not the ceasefire will hold because of Israel's continued assault of Lebanon. Some new information we have just received is that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is seeking to open direct negotiations with Lebanon as soon as possible, even as the Israeli military issued fresh evacuation orders for Beirut. President Trump has asked Netanyahu in a phone call yesterday to scale back the strikes to help ensure the success of the Iran negotiations, an administration official said. We are going to dive in deep to this with Aaron David Miller. Aaron is a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and he's a former U.S. State Department Middle East advisor. Great to have you with us today, Aaron. What should we make of this new news? Is pressure from President Trump working on Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop the assault of Lebanon, in Lebanon?
I mean, one step at a time. I think whether or not these negotiations are going to be performative or symbolic is unclear. But I think that the Prime Minister of Israel understands that there may well be a direct connection between commitment and adherence to the ceasefire in Iran between the U.S., Israel, and Iran, and Israeli military activities in Lebanon. There have been direct negotiations between the Israelis and Lebanese before. Frankly, I doubt whether or not those are going to lead to anything. If, in fact, the situation changes, it will be because the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Israel have a conversation. And I think this is an effort by the Israelis to some degree to deflect pressure. I don't think we're on the cusp of a major rift between Washington and Jerusalem. I think there are any number of reasons we're not there yet with respect to the ceasefire with Iran. But yeah, I think that it's no coincidence that this follows a certain amount of unhappiness with the Israelis as far as their activities in Lebanon.
In any negotiation, it's about finding the shared mutual interest and the shared points or the points of division. What's the shared mutual interest here among Israel, Iran, and the United States after however many weeks of this conflict?
6 weeks. Well, I make a number of points. Number one, you have a president, I think, who may finally have realized that he's in a box. Okay. That in the war of choice 6 weeks later, none of the assumptions on which this war of choice was waged are proving true. The regime is not only proven to be resilient and durable, it's now more hard-line. Number two, the Gulf states have been proven to be exceedingly vulnerable to short-range Iranian missiles and drones. And three, I don't know whether someone showed the president and his advisors an atlas, but the Iranians have deployed geography as their new weapon of choice in managing and regulating who and what gets through the Straits of Hormuz. I think the president now understands that his choice is to escalate on one hand or to somehow unilaterally back down from escalating on the other. And he had a lifeline with the Pakistani proposal, which was, of course, worked in advance with the United States. So his interest is getting out of this war without paying an unacceptable price. The Iranians, number two, think they're winning. And by any objective measure, I think that's true. If the war came to an end tomorrow, it would constitute a strategic defeat for the United States. The Israelis would like the war to continue. They also had hoped for regime change. It doesn't appear that that's likely. And now, I think, having launched this campaign in Lebanon, they now understand that they are not just part of the war effort. Extraordinary partnership, by the way, between the United States and Israel. I don't think we've partnered with any allies since we did with the British in 2003 in the Second Iraq War. So there is this partnership, but the Israelis also now understand that they're going to figure, even though they're not at the table, they'll figure prominently in the diplomacy as well. Because Lebanon may well emerge as an Iranian condition for adhering to the ceasefire. Whether the president's prepared to accept that and then literally pressure the Israelis to stand down on the other is not yet clear.
Yeah, and just for listeners, there's an incredible piece in the New York Times from a few days ago that talks about this Israeli-U.S. partnership and a meeting between Trump and Netanyahu in the Situation Room, which never happens, that went through the entire war plan as it seemingly has unfolded. Aaron, I have to ask you this. We have, Pete Hegseth being Pete Hegseth, V for victory as if he were Winston Churchill. You have J.D. Vance being J.D. Vance, beating on his chest and talking about dominance. But as you just said, by real measure, if you actually look at what happened, this is a defeat by the United States. Is that because, in your view, Iran and Oman now control who goes in and out of the Strait of Hormuz? Uranium enrichment has not really been touched, and we're still not sure if there's been a full regime change.
Yeah, I think you hit the core points, I think. I think that's. I would argue that, again, if the war ended tomorrow, that would clearly be the case. I think what is critically important for this administration, for this president, not surprisingly, he's focused. Yes, he's talked about regime change. Yes, he's focused on the nuclear issue. But the reality is the only way he gets out of this on terms that are acceptable, and it's extraordinary because the straits were open February 28th. No one was challenging or managing tanker traffic. And you've now created a situation where Iran, by virtue of its geography, Oman is a silent partner here. The Omanis today basically rejected the fact that there'd be any tolls charged. But the only way he gets out of this is, at a minimum, if the straits open in a way that normal humans would regard as uncontested international traffic, and we're a long way away from that.
I'm curious to know how allies like Saudi Arabia are viewing this, and Qatar and key American partners in the region. Where are they now on this, Aaron?
Oh, I think they're wondering about American judgment. They're angry at the United States. Yet, and by the way, there are differences. The Omanis have a different take on this, sort of the Qataris. Their relations with the Iranians are much closer. Saudis and the Emiratis, another story. I think they're wondering about American judgment. I think they're angry at the Trump administration, even though they're incredibly dependent. And the level of destruction would have been severe had CENTCOM not coordinated air defenses over the last 5 years. That's really important. But they're dependent, and they know now, I think, that they're going to be left confronting an angry, bitter, hardline Iranian regime. And the consequences of that for Gulf security and stability, I mean, the Saudis and Emiratis fashioned themselves as a tourist hub, an economic hub, a cultural hub, a financial hub. All that is now at risk, largely because you have a war of choice, which is going
fascinating. Thank you for your insight, Aaron. Appreciate you making time for us today.
Thanks for having me.
That was Aaron David Miller, Senior Fellow, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and a former U.S. State Department Middle Eastern advisor. Hope you found that as interesting as I did. All right, I suspect we got a really another really interesting conversation coming up. Get your words together, Tim. We're going to talk to Gary in a moment after the break about the pause that has been put on the electronic health information system. Gary has some views on this. Back with that in a moment here on Open Line. Health records are a big issue, and how they are managed is a center of a raging debate in Newfoundland and Labrador. Doctors in our province say that the rapid implementation of a province-wide electronic health information system threatens to harm patients and push some physicians to retire or leave the province. 250 of them to date have signed a petition to the government asking that the electronic health information core care based on Epic software platform used in many parts of Canada and the U.S., which is set to launch on April 25th, be delayed. Newfoundland Health Services says Core Care promises to modernize healthcare by replacing outdated systems like Meditech, providing a single integrated digital record to improve patient care efficacy, and that should be efficiency, and data sharing across the province. Somebody who knows this sphere well is Gary Kelly. Gary reached out and wanted to have a chat about this. Gary, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about your background first, so that will help inform the discussion.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. I have worked I'm not a healthcare provider, but I have worked in the healthcare industry since 1993 with family physicians, surgeons, specialists. I've probably spent a couple of 100 hours in the operating room with physicians while they're actually performing operations. I have been a program manager, a project manager, and a change manager, and I have helped implement and install these systems specifically in Qatar and with various Canadian provinces over the last 3 or 4 years. So I feel as though that I have a bit of experience and a bit of background in this area.
All right, that's helpful for the audience to know the background, and for me as well. Now, you think what the doctors are calling for is not necessary and perhaps a backward step?
I think it's morally reprehensible, to be quite honest with you. I really do. It completely... It's almost laughable, except it's not, because it's just the position that the physicians, the NLTA, and the family, and not the family physicians, the physicians in the province have taken. Approximately 17%, almost 20% of physicians in the province signed that petition, that the NLTA actively encouraged them not to sign. 1 in 5 physicians have said they object to this, and I'm sure that they think that their excuses are unique and clever. Mm-hmm. However, they're not. It's the same excuses that physicians use across the province, across the country, and across the world when this sort of system is being implemented. And really, what it comes down to is physicians are afraid of accountability and transparency. So let's just put this into perspective for a second, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Before we get down into the weeds, let's look at exactly what the physicians are saying here. They are warning of a, quote, an exodus of physicians, end quote, and a, quote, destabilization of our healthcare system because of this new rapid, all-in-one, we call it, a gunshot, a rapid response deployment. Mm-hmm. And why is that, really? Like, let's ask ourselves, why is that? Because they don't want to use a computer? Because some of their members are still using paper? Really? I mean, if you will, just for a second, imagine being a young person, applying for a job at a local garage or a Canadian Tire at parts counter saying, I don't use a computer. Do you think they're going to get that job? Imagine being an administrative clerk. Imagine being an administrative clerk, one of the thousands of allied healthcare professionals that serve us daily, that get no recognition. Imagine being an allied health clerk professional or accounting administrator and saying, I'm sorry, I don't want to use a computer. Like, not a union in the world would be strong enough. And finally, if I may,
yeah, go ahead.
Imagine, do you think that Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services would come out today and say, look, we've been in contact and in discussions with the nurses union and the personal care workers, and you know what? 20% of them don't want to use a computer, and we're okay with that. No, they wouldn't. So why are we doing this for physicians? Why are we caving to the demands of these physicians? It's ridiculous. Best practice around the world suggests best practice around the world suggests that there is a benefit to having one patient healthcare record, one patient, one record, and yet Newfoundland, we seem to be going the complete opposite way. It's obvious to me why our healthcare system is in such disarray.
Yeah, you talked about transparency and accountability, but how much of it, too, Gary, is just simple human nature, resistance to change? I deal with this in the workplace all of the time. I'm in a workplace with a lot of younger people, and my God, the thought for them of putting anything down on paper or charting, as would be the medical term, is foreign. We use 3 or 4 different records management systems. We probably should have one, but the point is, as you rightly point out, in every other workplace and space, whether people like it or not, they're adapting to the opportunity of technology. So is a lot of this just base resistance to change?
Yeah, I'm certain there has to be. I mean, like logically, there has to be as human beings. But what physicians are objecting to, every excuse that physicians in the world, in Newfoundland, in Canada, and across the world, I've been hearing this argument in healthcare for 30 years, since 1993. My God, not everyone has a computer. But what physicians are really objecting to is one thing and one thing only, and that is called CPOE, computerized provider order entry or computerized physician order entry. And what this does is this requires the physician to provide accountability and transparency. And physicians have considered themselves the god of the ward forever, and they're absolutely incensed that someone would question what they're doing. For example, right now, you go into the doctor and you say to the doctor, Doctor, I'm being a bit facetious in this example, by the way.
Yes.
I got a bad knee, and the doctor says, well, I'm going to write you a script now and scribble something down on a little piece of paper, and it's like a menthol cream you just rub on your knee, and you'll be like Vicks Vapor Rub, and you'll be fine. No, it's in a black box. It's on a piece of paper somewhere. There's no accountability.
Yeah.
There's no transparency. It might not follow best practice. But with these new systems, what happens is a doctor still has that. They still have that ability to prescribe Vicks Vapor Rub for a bad knee. However, there's now a digital breadcrumb record of that.
Well, and as a patient, sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to cut you off. I've just gone through this, right? I'm in Ontario most of the time. I have a physician in Ontario, and I have had some different health challenges over the last year, and I was just at my GP, and he has all, in one electronic form, has all of the records of the tests and the medications and everything. As a patient, we should want this, because if it's done as it's designed to do, it benefits us, and it doesn't seem to be more laborious. I got to give you about 1 minute because I've got some other callers there, Harry, but please, Gary, sorry, 1 minute. You there, Gary?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I said you got about 1 minute. Go ahead.
Okay, I guess my point is that this is ridiculous. This is counterproductive. It's actually dangerous. It's actually a dangerous patient safety. Imagine you come out from St. John's to Marble Mountain, having an amazing ski season, and you fall down and you break your leg, God forbid, and something else. You show up in the emergency department, and there's nothing known about you. That's dangerous. To not adopt this sort of system is dangerous to patient safety. We are saying we value the physician's convenience more than we value patient safety and accountability. And all I will say is what the NLMA is advocating, what Newfoundland Labrador Health Services is now suggesting, that this is not mandatory. This goes against basic best practice guidelines across the world, and it's clear to see why the healthcare system is in such disarray in Newfoundland and Labrador.
All right. Appreciate the call, Gary. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right. By the way, if you're interested in this, for those of you who have heard of the show The Pit, there's a great episode in this season's series of The Pit where they have an electronic record breakdown because there's a malware attack and they have to go back to charting. And the discourse around, this is so burdensome, it's so tough charting, we don't know how to do that. It's just reflective of the conversation I just had with Gary. Let me go to Harry Shepard. Harry wants to talk about the Fogo Island Ferry. Harry, how are you today?
That's what I want to talk about. I left Fogo Island on the 23rd of March. The ferry was the Labrador ferry to Amitic. When I came back on April the 2nd, the MV Veteran was in service. Mm-hmm. I went to the bathroom and was shocked to see that the urinals are still covered with plastic and taped together. And there was one toilet had a commission and marked out of order. Then when it came time for disembark, the ramp was at a commission and I had to back off the ramp. I think that the minister should pay a visit to the ferries and fix it. I mean, them toilets have been out for the last 2 or 3 years on almost a new ferry.
Yeah, I know it's not a long run, but like you said, people got to go to the bathroom. That's a bit indignant of the provider not allowing somebody to be able to use the washroom facilities.
Yeah, it's crazy. I thought the PCs were going to fix everything, but it looks like they're not.
You've had your... Go ahead, Harry. I've had too many Garys and Harrys today.
It's terrible when something is in service as big as the ferry and it comes back and the toilets and the urinals are still covered over. I mean, not all the toilets. One of them was marked out of order. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, you've got a right to be mad. Well, anything else you want to add about that?
No. I just hope the next time I goes on is fixed.
Yeah, I would say that's a fair request, Harry. Thanks for your call today.
Yeah. Anyway, all the best to you.
Take care. Bye. All right. Legitimate thing. If public enterprise, like the ferries are, you'd think the bathrooms work. And according to Harry, they don't. Got to fix that, particularly with tourism season coming, telling people to hold on till you get to Fogo Island. Probably not the best reflection of our tourism ads. Okay, going to take a break. We've got Connie and a couple of other callers when we come back. Welcome back. All right, Connie's been waiting patiently. We'll go right to Connie. Connie also wants to talk about the food fishery. Connie, how are you today?
Hi, Tim. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You also are advocating for a better management of the food fishery, longer season. Is that where your head is at, Connie?
That's where my head is at, and I'm calling to continue to share the message that Barry Fordham and Merv Wiseman have recently voiced on Open Line yesterday. Mm-hmm. And when you say patiently waiting, probably change that to nervously waiting.
Well, you're doing great. You're doing great. You keep going.
And this is second-time caller, long-term listener, right?
Well, you're wonderful. You keep going.
So I think the first thing I would like to do is reiterate a couple of statements from Barry and Merv from our press release. If I could just read those out to get these messages across.
Go ahead.
So
sure.
Barry's statement. If you could peer into the soul of Newfoundland and Labrador, you would see an unmistakable image of a codfish. That's how deeply our identity is tied to our spirit fish. Break that bond and you fracture more than a tradition. You erode our people's connection to who we are, where we came from, and how we have lived for generations.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, breathe.
You did it.
Merv Wiseman, he emphasized the strength of the collective voice advocating for meaningful change. The message was loud and clear that there is a strong and united voice calling for an enhanced food fishery. Everyone can work in solidarity with our committee to help coordinate a food fishery that truly works for all our people.
Let me ask you this, and I got about a minute and a half. In your voice, you've had the courage to call. You're doing great. You're talking, telling us, again, reinforcing the message. Why is this important to you, Connie?
Tim, it hit me in my empty freezer this past winter.
Interesting.
Because my husband and I, first of all, I'm from Trepassey, a long generation of Tobin fishermen in Trepassey. When Fisher Products was at its peak, the community was one of the best places, and still is one of the best places to be. I moved away to Ontario when I was 20, moved back when I was 43. I won't tell you how many years I've been back because that would be
only yesterday you got back. Then clearly,
Connie.
Only
yesterday I got back, and I had to wait to get on the boat. So living in Ontario for 23 years, my dream was to move back home to Newfoundland in a little rural area. Get out and fish and take advantage of everything that's available to us here. And when it rolled around winter, and I asked my husband, I said, can you get us a bag of fish? We'll have some fish. And this probably was in March. And he's like, we don't have any. So no fresh fish for Good Friday. And I'll tell you why we don't have any. Our practice has been we go out fishing off of Balleen, and we usually, my husband's parents are in Deer Lake. They're both in their mid-80s. He has a brother with a disability as well. Okay. So whatever we catch before we book that trip across the island to Deer Lake, we bring it out to them. We've always been able to come back in July or usually mid-July we go to Deer Lake. And we usually come back and we can replenish our own fridge. We do, I cook up social gatherings for families and fish fries. I have not been able to do that. The weather and my husband's 24-hour rotation work shift in emergency services keeps him away one of those days 3 weekends out of a month. Okay. So you add that with the weather, and you add it with personal illnesses or not feeling well enough to go out. So many things that, in that little 3-day window that we're allowed, it puts, people are trying to feed their families. And, you don't want them out there trying to do that in danger.
No, you don't want them out there. No, that makes perfect sense from my perspective. I think there are a lot of people who would probably have a similar view as to their circumstances, and a limited time doesn't allow for that. Connie, I do have to let you go. You did great. Thank you for calling.
Can I give you one more thing?
Go ahead.
We respect honest livelihoods for all: food fishery, commercial fishery, and tourboat fishery. Okay. This is about food security and our unwavering love of and passion for our culture. Most people are out there to feed their families, not for profit.
All right. Good to talk to you, Connie. Thank you. Have a good day. All right, that was Connie. As you saw, there's a number of people who have called on the food fishery. Let's go to Garrett, who wants to respond to Gary. And if you missed Gary's call, Gary is he called it morally reprehensible, I believe was his phrase, that physicians in the province have signed a petition to stop the movement forward of the electronic health information system. With that set up, I go to you, Garrett. How are you today?
Good morning. Good. I was listening this morning to what Gary said, and not typically an open line caller, but felt that, after reading some of the NLMA issues and being a lawyer practice, I really had to push back on what he was saying there, because calling the doctors morally reprehensible for this is frankly disgusting. I mean, two major issues there that the NLMA has raised that I thought were really shocking. And the one that jumped out to me as a lawyer was that the core care system is attempting to shove liability from core care off onto the doctors. That means if there's some kind of fundamental flaw with the core care program and it leads to a breach like there was in 2001, the doctors are going to be on the hook for that. And speaking with doctor friends of mine, that's been a huge piece of hesitation for them. They don't want to see themselves in a situation where, because of a faulty programmer who's maybe thrown something together with AI and kind of just pushed it out without really caring, the doctors don't want to be on the line for the negligence of this corporation, Core Care. I mean, to ignore that complaint of the NLMA, I think is shocking. Particularly to call them morally reprehensible for that.
I would just stop you for a second. And as you know, we're all in professions where we're not always highly regarded by the public. However, when you are a physician, you do take on enormous liability anyway. And if you are using a tool that is required of you, you should, it is fair, I would agree with you on that you understand where liability rests, and if it is unfairly or not properly accounted for with the new system. That's a legitimate concern. Go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was my first major concern that the NLMA outlined in their letter that I thought was, a really major issue. I wouldn't want to be on the line liability-wise for the mistakes of a piece of software I use. I wouldn't want to be on the line for negligence caused by Microsoft, using my computer and sending out emails. So that was one thing that I thought was really strong in the NLMA's letter. And the second one is just something that I know from folks who are involved in abortion care in the province that, it's not a fear of computers that is leading places like Clinic 215 to not want to do computer charting. It's the fear that information gets out. We're living in a province where for 40 years now abortion care has been legal, but that doesn't mean it's safe or that it's something that people want to put out there, because they're afraid of how their communities are going to react. They're afraid of how their families are going to react. We hear stories all the time about people being disowned by their parents and their family for receiving medical care that they're constitutionally entitled to. And so for places like Clinic 215 and Planned Parenthood, paper charting has been essential for them to maintain their patients' privacy. And so having a system come in here that eliminates that ability, that is going to stifle the ability for those organizations and other, smaller community practices to be able to provide safe, effective private care to individuals. I mean, that's a huge issue in and of itself as well. We know how small Newfoundland and Labrador is. We know that as soon as something shows up on your medical chart or in the medical system with your family doctor that you went to St. John's to get an abortion, your doctor might ask a question about it, innocently, not thinking about it, and raise the issue maybe while you're a 16-year-old and you're in care with your parents. These are major issues that the NLMA has raised, and I think to describe them as morally reprehensible for looking to debate on these major significant issues, I think it really shows what kind of a position Gary is arguing from here.
Well, what both you and Gary have done, though, for me, is suggest that NL, Newfoundland Labrador Health Services, probably needs to give us all an explanation of how they view the system working and what they see as the challenges, so the doctors' concerns can be addressed and the public's concerns can be addressed. Because, as I said to Gary, I have seen as I'm an adult male of a certain age, so I don't care if people hear my medical information. It's usually just me that's hearing it, but I certainly see the benefit of it all being in one place. But thank you, Garrett. Great interjection in the discussion. Appreciate it. You have a good weekend.
Appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you. All right, time for our first news break here. When we come back, more of your calls. Welcome back. Tim Powers in for today. We're going to go to line 4 and talk to Mike. Mike, you've got something you want to say on political donations. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, first I'll say, Tim, what a great day to have a line of clothes out. Yeah.
Well, you know what, Mike? Let's celebrate that because there haven't been a lot of days like that.
No, that's right. One other thing before I get into my topic. This is a suggestion to VOCM. They have these questions of the day, and it will be great to see. You know, and my suggestion will be like to the people, and that they're. Do they think that politicians are acting for the people or themselves? It would be great feedback and stuff, because myself personally, our political system, not only in Newfoundland, but all across Canada, has become a bit of a joke and a bit of a failure, and there's not much integrity or trust left in it. But that's my personal opinion, and I got a funny feeling there's probably millions of Canadians that think the same way, and I'll leave that at that. But maybe you can come up with some kind of question of the day of how much integrity or trust that the people has left in the political system, because there is such a thing as democracy, codes of conduct, accountability, and responsibility. But,
well, the only thing I would say to that is that's a good suggestion on the question. I guess we always still have one vehicle of accountability, and that is whenever there are elections, but maybe people want more. Anyway, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. There's a lot of talk about these donations, political donations, and we are only one of two provinces that haven't put a cap on it. We've had the Liberals in, the Conservatives in. They've made no moves to change that. But, okay, we'll leave that at that, and that speaks for itself that they haven't done that. It speaks for itself in integrity. But as regards to donations and that there, Tim, you know, lots of people make donations and conditional free. You know, like people make donations to the Daffodil House, Salvation Army, many, many charitable organizations. And that is done with no strings attached, you know. So, and that's just out of the kindness of their heart. They're not expecting nothing back, you know. But if we look at these political donations, and there's lots of them, and some from some major companies and people with interests and stuff. You know, these are not donations with no strings attached. These are donations which, okay, I'll scratch your back and you scratch mine, and that's just how bad that system is. You know, I look down through the list, and there's only one fella there that I can actually say, I think I'm allowed to say it. Danny Williams made a substantial donation, but if I look at Danny Williams and the amount of money he's got, and I looked at the other donations, and they're like right in your face. They're expecting things back. But I'll give Danny a little bit of credit. He's not satisfied with the MOU for Churchill Falls. He has nothing to gain, only for the people of Newfoundland. So kudos for him, you know?
Okay. I would just say this: you hit it for me. Just be careful. Look, when you see people giving a lot of money, you automatically people are going to think, oh well, why is Company X writing a check for $65,000? That must be a benefit for them. It may not be, but it certainly creates that impression. And sometimes in politics, the impression is the reality, and that's the challenge with the lack of law and everybody, when it is all revealed afterwards, being accused of potentially benefiting. Anything else you want to add quickly, Mike, before we go?
Yeah, two little subjects right there. And, you know, in the penitentiary, we have repeat offenders. So they go in and they do their time, and they come out and they do crime, and they're back in. Well, this is my personal opinion, of course. Our repeat offenders are right now in the House of Assembly. You know, the Liberals go in.
Go ahead. That's pretty good.
They commit enough crimes, and then bang, they're out. And then the PCs go in. So it's repeat offenders, you know, and that's my thoughts on it. But they're not doing nothing for the people, and it really saddens me to see. You know, the Newfoundland and Labrador people who I love so much, and this province is not getting any further ahead.
So the crime is in action. All right. That's pretty good, Mike.
One last
30
thing,
seconds. 30 seconds.
30
Go.
seconds. Okay. The Rothschild report, $5.4 million, you know, and is not released. And that was the Newfoundland and Labrador taxpayers paid for that. And if Andrew Fury wants to bring that home and put it out on his woodshed and keep it, well, he should pay the taxpayers back to $5.4 million, or we deserve to see what was in the report. You know, this stuff goes on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, you've made me laugh today, and you've given me some stuff to think about, so I appreciate it, Mike. You have a good weekend. Take care.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for your time.
All right. That's why I love this show. You get all emotions. Speaking of which, we got Jim on the line. Jim, you're no fan of space travel, I'm told.
Not at all. Honestly, Tim, first-time caller, do enjoy your show. And
thank you.
But we do not. I really don't get the idea of space travel when nobody is ever going to live there. There's no, absolutely no fundamental issue out there. You can't live there. There's no oxygen. You can't grow vegetables. You cannot inhabit the planet. And here we are in Newfoundland, actually in Canada, all over the world, and we still don't understand what's going on under the ocean. I think the money would be very well spent on the planet that we live on.
Yeah, I think those are valid points. Look, I am no scientist, as everybody is clearly aware. I have seen, I know there are a lot of people who are exceptionally bright, and I don't put Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos necessarily in that category, though they're very good business people. But it's what did I see the other day? It has the potential to be an $8 trillion business or something, space. Now, that might just be that. Now, what I was going to say, Jim, that might just be people, rolling the dice in development schemes, and they could be going all Trump in space, right? We don't know, but I do think scientific curiosity requires that we pursue and we learn. But anyway, you go ahead. Sorry, I'll give you another couple of minutes.
And I do appreciate scientific curiosity, but I mean, honestly, do we even know what's on the bottom of Mariana's Trench?
Yeah.
Explore Earth first.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a fair message. I mean, I think we are, but maybe your point is do more of that. Last question for you. Will you be watching tonight when Artemis 2 comes back? Are you interested in that, or your view on space travel is such that you won't be paying attention to that this evening?
I certainly will be watching because I want to see the astronauts land safely. And that's my only reason.
Yeah, no, that's a very important point. You and I have seen, and lots of the listeners, tragedy when things like the Challenger space shuttle blew up.
I remember I was a very young child in 1969 when man landed on the moon, and even at that time, I was thinking, why are we landing on the moon? Mm-hmm. We'll never be able to live there. I mean, that, and totally now, Tim, these are only my thoughts, but, I think there's some rationality in my thoughts.
Well, there's certainly rational arguments being made. Whether people choose to buy in or debate you, we'll see. But I'm glad you called, Jim. Got to leave it there. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you answered my call, Tim. Have a good day.
All right, you take care. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, the leader of the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador, leader of the official opposition, is on the line. We'll have a chat with John Hogan when we return. We're going to Montreal now. I've got Cole Caulfield on the line. No. Don't want to let him down. Sorry, John. A little unfair to you. John Hogan, leader of the opposition, leader of the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador. You're a 50-goal scorer somewhere, aren't you?
Yeah, maybe if you total all my goals of all the soccer games I've ever played over the last 50 years, I might be pushing 50.
All right, I thought that. Teasing aside, you're in Montreal. The National Liberal Convention is there. It's not unusual for leaders of provincial parties to go. Why are you there, John? What are you interested in seeing and doing this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be here. It's an incredible atmosphere at the Liberal Convention yesterday. We spent a big chunk of the day there yesterday meeting Liberals from across the country and meeting some MPs and federal ministers and listening to speeches. And, in Newfoundland and Labrador, our provincial party has always had a very close connection to the federal party, which great working relationship. I think if you look over the last number of years, things we've managed to accomplish with Prime Minister Trudeau and, of course, with Prime Minister Carney as well. And it's important to keep those relationships up with our MHAs, with our caucus, our Liberal caucus, and our federal MPs as well. So it's a great opportunity to sort of get together with people from not only our province, but from across the country to talk about where the Liberal Party is going and talk about the leadership of the Prime Minister. I mean, people really respect him. There's tough times in the world right now, of course. The crisis in the Middle East and the cost of oil and the cost of gas and things, and ceasefires one day and no ceasefire the next day. And people in the country really respect our Prime Minister. He's a tremendous leader, and he's respected on the world stage, and I think we're very lucky to have him. And Newfoundland and Labrador is very lucky to have him in our corner as well.
One of the things that's being talked about here that I'm sure is being talked about there in different capacities is the deal you guys all had on Lower Churchill. It's back in the news this week because of the donations coming out. We can get to that in a moment. But Premier Legault will be gone in a couple of weeks, his own leadership. Prime Minister Carney was rumored to be very interested in the deal that has been struck. What's the talk there about the fact that that agreement at this point looks like it's never going to proceed from a memorandum of understanding to an actual agreement?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a rumor. He was interested. He was very clear when he became Prime Minister that his agenda was to build Canada. He continues to talk about it. I know the first Minister's meeting I had with him, which was his first opportunity to meet the premiers, and I mean, it was almost like Dragon's Den. We went around the table from everybody across the country, and everybody was pitching ideas. Everybody was supportive of each other, by the way, which was really good to see. And we pitched, of course, our ideas. Beta Nord, which continues to move forward, which is great. Opportunities in Goose Bay, which he's now committed money to as well, which is great. And of course, he was very keen on a project between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec to deliver lots of money to our economy in Newfoundland and Labrador, lots of jobs. And of course, a lot of green energy, which is important for the country as well. So I would say he's extremely disappointed that he's not seeing progress on that deal. And again, when you have premiers from across the country pitching deals, and now Newfoundland and Labrador seems to be going backwards, I would argue probably the biggest deal that was pitched at the table when I was there. I'm sure he's incredibly disappointed about that.
Just before we leave that and get to some of the local stuff, I mean, what is your sense of the mood of the Federal Liberal Party? They are on the verge of a majority with the floor crossing and the by-elections coming this week. You just finished leading a government. You're still leading the party that was in power for a very long time. And as you know, there's always a challenge when you're in power for a long time. Even when you change leader, you as a new premier encountered this. People will view you as being around too long. You're interested in your own benefit. You're not interested in the public. What would you say to the federal Liberals, even though they have a new popular leader, about how they stay relevant and stay in power based on what you've learned and what you're seeing in Montreal?
I think, what I've seen, and certainly over not only just a couple of days, but since Prime Minister Carney took over, there's, despite the 10 years in government, it really does feel like a renewal, and there is a big sense of optimism about the leadership that we're seeing from Prime Minister Carney. So, yeah, fair point. When you're around for a long time as a party, people sort of tend to look at what you've done and what you haven't done, or, the hiccups maybe over the last 10 years. But I think people are giving the Prime Minister the benefit of the doubt, the fact that he is new. He has not been around for 10 years. And let's not, the party has done a lot of good things over the last decade. But it is a new time. It is a new leader. There are new conversations that are happening. And the world has changed. I mean, the world that exists today is not even what really, existed last year when Prime Minister Carney decided to step forward. And I think everybody recognizes he's the right person at the right time for this job.
Closer to home, a lot of noise this week when all the donation numbers from the election were released. You guys raised a little bit more than the PCs. You also had some big donors, but the news seems to be on the fact that former Premier Williams, donated personally about $46,000, and there were some other corporate donations that he made. A lot of people arguing that, that donation and his campaigning helped undo the Churchill Falls MOU among the public. I mean, is the issue more, John, that we need rules than it is the size of the donation and what influence may or may not have been exercised?
Yeah, I think, everybody has talked about the size of the donations, of course, and no rules were broken, as you said. I think the important thing to look at here, and maybe the disappointing thing or the confusing thing for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, Mr. Williams has claimed that it's the most, the biggest win he's had in his post-political career. He said he's killed the MOU essentially, and he decided to get involved in that election for that sole purpose. What's troubling is that the current Premier Wakeham, has never actually said whether he's for or against the MOU. He decided not even to vote during the course of the campaign. He wouldn't say if he wanted to proceed or didn't want to proceed. He's now appointed a panel, which, by the way, one of the people on the panel, Chris Huskelson, worked very closely with Danny Williams on the Muskrat Falls project. So I guess the next step would be we'd like to hear from Premier Wakeham about, is the deal dead? I mean, Mr. Williams certainly seems to say over the last couple of days he was successful in killing the deal. So where are we on it? I mean, is the deal dead? Are we going to proceed, or is there any negotiations ever going to happen again? He certainly seems to be saying that's the case, so we should hear from the Premier about that.
Just before I let you go, why does nobody ever move on reforming donations in Newfoundland? You can't just point the fingers at you guys. It's the Conservatives have had the opportunity to do it. Why does nobody ever reform it? Because, as you know, federally there's pretty strong rules. Different provinces there's strong rules. Why do we avoid doing that?
We certainly made an attempt to move forward on some legislation. We had an all-party committee that was formed to look at the Elections Act after the COVID election of 2021. The NDP weren't interested in participating. The Conservatives were there for a little while and decided to walk away. So that was a bit of a struggle when I was there. But I think if it just takes that little bit of initiative, I think everybody's on the same page that it's certainly time to cap what these donations are in our province. Everyone else has done it, I think, except for maybe one or two other provinces. The federal government has a model, or the federal legislation has a model I think we could copy fairly easily.
All right, good to have you today. Enjoy your time. Hope you get to that hockey game on Saturday night. Will be a big one for playoff implications. Thanks for joining us, John.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Liberals are, a lot of red here in the city, but I can tell you, there's a lot of Montreal Canadiens type here too as well. It's great.
As there should be. All right, that is, have a good weekend. That is John Hogan, leader of the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador, leader of the opposition. We'll take a break, and when we come back, more of your calls. Welcome back. Tim Powers here. We're going to go to Byron on line 3. Byron wants to talk about the food fishery. Go ahead, Byron.
Yes. Good morning, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I wanted to say is kudos to VOCM for having you there. When I travel along in my vehicle in the afternoons, driving along, I'm using this new VO to FM. But around 4 o'clock, I always go to the Tim Power Show when you're there. So I guess you got so many irons in the fire now, you can't keep it all up.
I'm just doing this for the week. I'll be back 4 o'clock next week. My buddy Zach is there today. But thank you. Did you hear that, Greg Smith? We've got good listeners. All right, you keep going.
Yeah, okay. I'm calling about the food fishery. First of all, I'd like to give a shout-out to, the committee that's keeping this alive. Well, it's not alive, but it's represented are remaining quiet, yet are so affected by it and so engaged in what's being said and what's being done. So a big shout-out to, Barry and Calvin and Kim and Merv and Connie and others that are doing that. I think we owe them a big debt of support, and we should be calling Open Line. We should be calling our politicians and getting involved more, just not leave it up to them. The aspect of the food fishery that I want to touch on first is the cultural component. It was Mark McLuhan that's live in a global village, right? We live in a global village, and that's true. You switch on your TV or your computer every year these days, and every part of the world comes right home. You're there. part of it. And I give thanks every morning when I wake up that we're part of which is a big part, say, of that mosaic, right? All the global, and we're that mosaic. Tim, for the last 26 years, I've spent a lot of my time up in northern Canada. Beautiful place, beautiful part of Canada. I love it. I think if I had gone there when I was young, I probably would have lived.
Oh, you're chopping up a bit, Byron. Can you stand? If you're moving around, can you stand still because you're coming in kind of choppy?
Okay, I'll move closer to the. I'm one of those guys that when they speak, they have their hands go all over.
I can relate. That's better. Stay where you are. Keep your hands in one place. Go, Byron.
I've noticed Mr. Carty with his hands sometimes. It's a good job he's not having the cell phone with him. So, as...
I tell you what, Dave, Byron, you're breaking up. What we're going to do, I'm going to get you and Dave to fix this. You hold there, Byron. Let's bring on Steve Callahan, and we'll get Byron back on if we can do that. Steve, I know you're in one place. I know you probably talk with your hands too, but we'll sort Byron out. We'll get him on in a second. Great to have Steve Callahan on. Steve, of course, coaches the junior Caps. They're in the final series now. He's a hockey commentator, scout, realtor, MMA. God, I don't know what you don't do, buddy. Let's talk, though, in the hockey world. Before we even go to Caulfield, let's throw a bouquet to a Newfoundlander, Clark Bishop, who's played in the NHL from time to time, including here in Ottawa. 500 AHL games. What kind of a special achievement is that, Steve?
I think it's a huge special. We've had 33 players from Newfoundland playing in the American Hockey League, and of course, we can't forget the magician from Meeting Well Road, John Slaney, 631 games, and Jason Morgan from CBS at 584. But Clark Bishop at 499 tonight, and he's still 30 years old, is incredible. We often get caught up in, a player playing in the National Hockey League, and obviously it's a huge accomplishment. But to be able to play pro hockey at a high level for so long is something that I think it's unlooked a lot of times and unnoticed, because it's just such a grind as well, and it's such a huge commitment, both from a motivational point of view to continue to aspire, but from a family point of view too. Clark has amazing parents, and Steve and Millie and brother and sister, and just huge support. But even to be recognized not only as a player, but as a captain of an organization as well. He'll mark 500 games tonight. Former Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, one of the top Newfoundlanders to ever be drafted, third overall in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League as well. So a player that I just don't think gets enough recognition based on hard work, commitment, everything. He's going to play 500 tonight, and health-wise could probably pass the Hall of Famer John Slaney. So it's incredible, really.
Yeah, and just to build on your comment, I have a couple of buddies who have played in the AHL, and the sacrifices they make are as intense as those who in the top league in the NHL. And in many ways, because they're the league below, they're constantly trying to find ways to showcase their game, improve their game, and they commit to it. And you may not have gotten an NHL game or as many NHL games, but you've been a professional athlete. You are still one of the top in your profession around the world. It is extremely, extremely admirable. So, well done, Clark Bishop. Well done on you for flagging that. Hard today not to talk about Cole Caulfield. I mean, Steve, I find this fun on so many levels. Here you have, in the world in which we live, an American-born player who speaks no French, being the toast of Montreal. It was only 2 weeks ago in the political world we were eviscerating the CEO of Air Canada because he didn't speak French. Here's Cole Caulfield. He speaks the language of hockey, and boy, Montreal and a lot of Canada is on fire about that. How special is this? Because it's been 30-odd years since Stéphane Richer did it.
I think it's incredibly special because that's what sports is all about. It pulls us away from harsh realities of the world sometimes. And last night, again, just to hear the fans, we're talking about fans in Montreal and how passionate they are about hockey and passionate about the history of the game. They're just to watch that last night and the special smiles. It was just like everything else was forgotten about. And Cole Caulfield, have we ever seen him not smile? And he, he represents the love of the game. And I don't think anybody from any particular scouting region would have ever, or any level would have ever predicted that he was going to score 50 goals in the National Hockey League. And it's just incredibly special last night. It's just, he makes it look so easy in a world where it's so difficult. It's so difficult to score in the National Hockey League, and he makes it look so easy. And a player of his stature, I think it's inspirational for any small hockey player out there that wants to achieve the next level, and wants to pursue things at the highest possibility that they can. I think he's an inspiration. I think he's good to watch, no matter what jersey you wear or which team you root for. He's somebody that you can certainly aspire to be, and his accomplishment last night was huge. It's been 36 years since somebody from the Montreal Canadiens lit it up at that level. So it's very exciting. It's exciting for the game, and obviously exciting for the future of these playoffs coming up as well.
And what a lesson for young players, too, before we move on to what's going on with you guys. He didn't make the U.S. Olympic team. He didn't sulk. He wasn't bitter about it. And, of course, that team went on and won a historic gold. He didn't, bury his head. In fact, he scored just about every game in March, set some kind of goal-scoring record in March. But, take your disappointment, channel it, work through it, and turn it into something positive. And he did he's done all of that. So where are we with the junior finals? What's going on with that, Steve?
Well, we're on the Iron Lung tonight and headed out to Bay Roberts. And for Game 4, it's been an incredible final so far. A lot of respect for the CBN Stars. Great organization, and they bring such an incredible fan base, and they it's such a passionate community. Tonight, I expect it'll be jammed up, and right now CBN Stars lead 2-1, and we're hoping to get things tied up tonight for sure. So. It's been 4 years in a row now that we've faced off against each other, and so it's been no different. Every game played on an incredible level. So expect nothing different tonight, and we're looking forward to it. So.
Well, good luck. Good luck to Bay Roberts too. Always appreciate your contribution, my friend. Thanks for the time today.
All right, chat soon, Tim. Thanks.
All right, that's Steve Callahan. Yeah, that's a Caulfield story. I'm really taken by it. It's a great example of when you get thrown a curveball, you just keep staying at the plate, to mix my sports metaphors. All right, we got Byron back. Byron, are you in a good location now, buddy?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me clearly?
You're perfect now. You got 2 or 3 minutes. Go ahead, my friend.
Okay. I won't comment on Caulfield being a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, but moving on.
I wouldn't comment on anything if I were a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, Byron. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know how much of my last conversation you heard, but the point I was making was about the food fishery and the cultural aspect of it. As I was saying, I've spent the last 26 years, a good part of it, in northern Canada, and really love it there. If I had been a bit younger, first when I went there, I think I might have even moved. That's how much I love it. But one of the aspects about northern Canada, whether I was in the Northwest Territories or Nunavut in the various smaller communities, a lot of them isolated, is their emphasis on culture. I mean, culture is everything. It's part of their school system, and they take part of their curriculum is going out on the land, practicing, the eating and harvesting of traditional animals and the fish in the lakes and things like that. And I think here in Newfoundland, we sort of, I don't know, since Confederation let that slide in our big rush to be like the rest of the world, being in this global village that we are in. And I'm all for, I think it's very important to have a world view, to be, have a Canadian view as well. I'm very proud Canadian. But up there, one thing I noticed, like I said, is their emphasis on their culture. And why is that? And why do we need to keep emphasizing that here in Newfoundland? Well, in a world that changes so fast, so quickly. I mean, we humans can't keep up. We can't adjust. And you have Dr. Hubbard on, and I know psychologists or psychiatrists. I'm not sure, psychologists, I guess. All the mental health issues we deal with, a lot of it is tied in with social media, with our youth and things like that. So I'll get back to the point I'm trying to make. If we don't emphasize our culture and our roots, we're like, sagebrush. We're like trees that you just can't grow. You just can't survive. And for the last, at least 500 years, which is not long, perhaps, in world history, but it's important as our culture, we've had a food fishery of some sort. We could go out, we could get fish, we could bring them in. When I was a young person, before I went away to school and that, I had my own lobster traps and all my nets and my salmon nets and all this kind of thing. Now, I'm not fighting to get that back and never will. But we do have an inborn right as Newfoundland and Labradorians to go and take a codfish from the water and put it on their table. We don't need approval from anybody to do that. But we're trying to work with the political and the legal system to go that way. That's my strong feelings on this. I don't know if you want to stop me for a moment.
No, I don't disagree with what you're saying. You keep going there. I'll give you another minute. You're having a good run there, Byron.
No. I'll tell you a little story. Back when the cod moratorium was over and they opened up the fishery a little bit to, some food fishery, I had an older uncle. He was 88 years old. I don't mind mentioning his name, Uncle Ralph.
Right.
And this day was a beautiful day. He couldn't go out fishing. So he took his punt from the wharf, he pushed off, he caught 3 or 4 fish, came back to the wharf. His brother, a few years younger, in his 80s, said, "Ralph, be charged, you're going to be in jail." And Uncle Ralph turned to him in his, stoic way, and he said, "Alan, it's just as well to be in jail with narfish as home with narfish." I mean, that's
pretty good.
That's part of the culture. And our young people that are tied up with social media so much, when I get my grandchildren and we go out getting some fish for the table, they get away from this. They see their roots. They take pride in their heritage. I mean, it's a different aspect that we need to keep alive for merely cultural reasons, if nothing else. And I strongly support that.
Yeah, and look, it's so important to keep a lot of these cultural practices together. And one of the things we're hearing and seeing more now is the diminishment of culture in other locations. If you can link the economy to the culture, then you do that. 30 seconds, Byron. I got to leave it at that. What else would you like to say?
Well, some aspects of this food fishery. Some people are saying we should have tags and things like that. I'm strongly against that. I take my kids and my grandkids, and we go out cleaning up the beaches sometimes. I get kelp for put on my vegetable garden, and it's interlaced with plastic of all kinds. It's all mixed in there. There's shotgun shells, there's tags from fishing, there's, plastic bags, and we don't need any more plastic out there. If we go have a 7-day week where you can go out and catch a few fish, that will take care of itself. It won't be overfished, I know, because first when it opened up, we only had a few days, and every day I'd be out getting it in. It's human nature to sort of do these things. But as you get a bit more time and you get into it more, I don't be on the water half as much, but I do want the flexibility to go out there, and I won't be taking any more fish. I've seen that over the last few years, how it's worked out for me, and I think for most people that's the case. And if anybody wants to argue that we're going to be selling this fish, that's an enforcement issue. I'm not proposing to be narcs, but there is a line where you can phone in about poachers from moose and things. It's an enforcement issue. And if that needs to be taken care of, anyone is selling it, do it that way.
All right. Great chatting with you, Byron. And I love the full Byron we got, uninterrupted with the jesting hands and all of that. You have a good weekend. Thank you for your commentary.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Byron. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got Tony, Anthony, and Mike all standing by. Hang tough, fellas. We'll be back on Open Line momentarily. All right, let's go talk to Tony. Tony, you've got a Newfoundland and Labrador housing issue you want to talk about, sir?
Yes, I do.
Oh, fire away.
Okay. I have an issue with Newfoundland Labrador housing.
Okay.
For the simple fact that, and don't take me wrong, I'm being subsidized with a rental unit.
Mm-hmm.
But because I am no longer allowed to get a Newfoundland Labrador housing unit.
Okay. And
well,
go ahead.
What I mean by that is that, like, a house, I'm restricted right now. I live in a basement apartment that somebody else owns.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm being subsidized through Newfoundland Labrador housing, which I appreciate. But I can't get my own housing unit. I don't understand why. And because I accepted this subsidy to find my own basement apartment where I can live, I am no longer qualified to get my own unit through Newfoundland Labrador housing.
Okay, Dave
yeah,
here.
Well,
I don't know the answer, Tony. We're add some more to your story, and we can check for you. What else would you like to add?
I don't want to add. You just said it there. I don't know where to turn because I'm after contacting Newfoundland Labrador housing, and they say because I have a basement apartment that they are subsidizing, I am no longer eligible to get my own private unit. Now, they turn around talking about these apartments that were burnt down in that Bar Avenue.
Yeah.
And they're going to build them up to accessible housing units for single people. Why am I not included in that list?
All right. I don't know the answer, but you have raised it here,
I
and
know
we'll see.
You don't know the answer.
Well,
I'm just making it public.
Okay.
Well, Labrador housing. I like to say what I like to say, but
yeah, then I'd have to cut you off. You get in trouble. All right. Tell you what, we will see if we can get a response for you, and if we do, we will let you know. All right, Tony?
Yeah, well, Tim, that sounds very good. What are you going to do? You going to give me a phone number?
Well, you got Dave, the producer.
And they say, it is what it is. This is the dilemma that I'm in.
It's an unfortunate. Tony, gotta go. I hear you, buddy. Dave has your phone number. Dave, the producer. They are usually pretty good at getting to Dave when people speak out. We get something, we'll call you. Okay.
Okay. Right.
All right. Thank you for the call. Good to talk to you. All right. That is Tony. We'll take a break now for our 11 o'clock news. More of your calls after that.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Okay, we're going to keep talking a little bit about these political donations and the impact they may or may not have had on the MOU. We've got the opposition critic for Energy and Mines, the MHA for Conception Bay, East Bell Island, Fred Hutton. Fred, I think I saw you somewhere on social media being critical of former Premier Williams on his interventions in the MOU discussions and the controversy around his donation, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Where are you in all of this, and what are you thinking?
Yeah, good morning, Tim. Well, where I am is quite clear, and what I said on my social media post last night was that Danny Williams is the last person we should take advice from on hydroelectric dams. We just shouldn't. And the reason is that because we are left with a giant mess because of Muskrat Falls. Now, there are others who know way more about this than me, but I mean, you know, and I've said this to you before, Tim, and I've said to the former host of the show that I don't think Danny Williams signed Muskrat Falls thinking that the price would double and it would end up costing this province $500 million a year just to keep my electricity rate low and everybody's electricity rate low. The same as I don't think Joey Smallwood did that back in 1969. I don't think either of those people signed those agreements thinking that it would turn out to be the mess it is.
Right.
One deal was with Quebec, the Churchill Falls original agreement, the 1969 agreement, and one deal was without Quebec. And Danny Williams, make no mistake, he did not want to do a deal with Quebec back in 2013 or 2010 when the agreement was signed, and with Muskrat Falls to try to get that going. He did not want to do it, and he worked with Emera and Chris Huskelson, and to remind people, Emera gets free energy basically for 35 years until that line is paid for, and then it reverts back to Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. And now Huskelson is involved in this review of the PC review of it. And I just found it really ridiculous for Danny Williams. I heard on your station today on VOCM him saying that this is not political, but I watched the scrum online, and one of his first lines was, on the PC, first of all, make no apologies for it, I supported the WACM government or the WACM administration and team. And it's it's a little bit rich for him to be giving advice on hydro dams when we are left with a project that almost bankrupted Newfoundland and Labrador, and we've got we've got to pay for Muskrat Falls. And one of the ways to do it is to develop the Lower Churchill. And if he wants to do it by going around Quebec again and circumventing having to deal with Quebec, it's going to, again, cost a lot of money, a lot more money than it would. The agreement is there, a memorandum of understanding. We were working towards a definitive agreement. And the mess that he and his government made, we are going to be paying for decades, as long as we're paying for the Upper Churchill at Churchill Falls. And I find it a little bit ridiculous.
I take all your points, but I'm left with this. I mean, first of all, on the whole issue of the donation controversy, isn't there blame on everybody? People are upset that Danny donated $46,000 personally. There are others who donated significant amounts of money.
Sure.
I mean, just hang, Fred. Just let me finish this one, please. I mean, shame on all parties, though, on this one, isn't it? This goes back to when you were a journalist. Nobody's ever tried to regulate that. So, on the issue of donations, we can whinge and complain, and everybody has a right to do that. But does anybody really have a leg to stand on in either of the two main parties because nobody's acted?
I agree that it should be changed. But to your point about the donations, there's only one person has said he donated for a specific reason, and Danny Williams is the only person in the news this week. None of the other people who donated to any of the parties. And look, we can have the conversation about the donations and the caps that should be there. I agree. And it would make it easier for people to get involved, or perhaps not easier. Not everybody can afford to do this. I heard you chatting about it yesterday. It's an expensive business to be in. to try to get elected, to try to run a campaign, to buy signs, to buy the advertising that you need if you're the party. If you're an individual candidate, you're probably not doing that. And yes, you need to have money in order to rent office space and to buy equipment and to pay your volunteers. Some of them, I mean, you have to also, more and more people are paying volunteers these days. They're not actually volunteers because it's getting so hard to get them. So my point is that there's only one person in the news about this. And he has specifically said why he did it. He did it specifically to kill the Muskrat Falls deal. And I mean, we had experts looking at this as the Liberal government. We had J.P. Morgan Chase. Hydro got those folks in. We had Power Advisory. We've talked about this before. People who do this for a living. Now, Danny Williams is a very successful business person, and I'm sure he can read a spreadsheet and look at, whether or not things are viable. Well, why didn't he know Muskrat Falls was not going to be $6.2 billion as it originally was, and it was almost $14 billion? Why didn't he pick up on that? So again, why are we taking his advice on this? And the other thing is that if he's bought this influence with Tony Wakeham, why isn't Tony Wakeham speaking out? I mean, the night of the election, I had people texting me, Danny's back in the 8th floor again, and they were PCs. I don't know if it's jokingly, like what influence does he have up there?
So just a couple of things. Two questions I want to ask you. I mean, you and I have been, we're old, Fred. Well, we're not that old. We're still vigorous. For as long as you and I have been doing what we've been doing in different capacities, and I said this yesterday, and I still believe it to be true, there's always been the suggestion in the Dwight Ball days, it was Brian Tobin who was pulling the strings. In the early days of Andrew Fury, it was, Tobin had influence there. I mean, it's always another premier influencing another premier. Mike, those stories have been there. Who knows if they're true? Who knows if they're not, what influence they have, they don't have. They're good Newfoundland fodder that always circulate. My question is this more from a strategic political perspective. And one's a strategic policy question, the other politics question, the other's a policy. What good does it do for the provincial Liberal Party to focus on Danny and an agreement that is struggling because of the conditions you laid out to get approved? What good does that do politically is the first question. And secondarily to that, is there any hope? I know you will fight till your last breath. I always admire that about you, and whatever you've done, you've always done that. But, I mean, are we getting near your last breath on the future of the MOU that your government signed?
Well, I fear we are, because I think it's going to be, I don't think they have enough time left. We're running out of runway. And I mean, look, personally, as a Newfoundlander and Labradorian, as a journalist who observed this, I was angry at Quebec for many years too, Tim. And I mean, I tried to park that as a reporter, and as a politician, I won't. I mean, I didn't like that agreement. And after many attempts in the Supreme Court of Canada and the upper courts in Quebec and all this, we tried to change this over 55 years. Frank Moores, a PC premier, when he got in power in 71, first thing he said was, we got to change that deal. He saw that it was a mistake. So, politically, I don't care about us. I mean, at this point, I just think that we are going to need that money. I mean, with Muskrat Falls, we had to get the $5.2 billion rate mitigation deal, which Danny couldn't get. We got that Hibernia money coming in now, but it's to offset. We don't get to pave roads with it. We got to pay for people's electricity bills. That's what subsidizes people's electricity bills. And for Danny Williams to say that this was his greatest achievement since he's been in politics is a little rich, because he nearly buried us financially. And when he was in power, he said it's pretty sad when former premiers comment on current administrations, and he said former premiers should shut up and go away. And I think that he should take his own advice. He should just shut up and go away, and let the people, the experts who are looking at this, look at it.
But what's the value? I just want to go to the. Sorry, Fred. I was just going to say, what is the value, though, of you guys getting back into a fight with Danny over this, or calling Danny out here? How does it help? I'm trying to understand the politics of it. How does it help the Liberal Party of Newfoundland?
The value of it is when that rate mitigation deal runs out in 2030 and we don't get $500 million a year, people's electricity bills are going to skyrocket unless the current government comes up with some sort of a plan. And I hope they do. And I actually hope they do sign this MOU and get a definitive agreement, and the referendum passes to all the things that Tony Wakeham said he's going to do. I really want them to do it for the future of the province. But in a few years, when we don't have that money, $1 billion a year up until 2041, and the $225 billion in the life of the agreement. And if the definitive agreements come back and they're not good, I wouldn't want to vote for it either. But let's have a look at them. This way, we're not even getting a chance to look at an opportunity, because Danny Williams didn't want to do a deal with Quebec back then, and he doesn't want us to do one now. He wants to work around Quebec. He says in the media that he'd like to do something with Quebec. He'd be okay with it, but they need to be separated. And I fear for where we will be financially as a province. And I mean, I'm a father of 4 kids, but they all live in scattered parts of the province. We're going to have grandkids, and I'm doing it for that. People can say whatever they want about how foolish that sounds, but that's the reason I'm in it. And I stayed in politics and ran the second time because of the Churchill Falls MOU. Okay. Just the same as he got in because of the Churchill Falls original. We can all have our opinions. My opinion is that Danny Williams should not be interfering in this. Okay.
No, and hey, legit. And you're, as I say, I'm just trying to understand the different angles of it. As you know, I'm now pretending to be Fred Hutton. I'm a pale imitation of that, but trying to get at it. Good to talk to you, my friend. Thank you for your call today.
Always a pleasure, Tim. You take care.
All right, that was Fred Hutton, the opposition critic for Energy and Mines, the MHA for Conception Bay, East Bell Island. We'll take a break. Anthony and Mike promise to get to you next when we come back. Welcome back. I believe we're going to Mike. Mike, you want to talk about the MOU. How are you today?
Oh, not too bad. I was listening to the previous caller talking about Danny Williams, how it was under him that the Muskrat Falls. Danny Williams actually sanctioned Muskrat Falls at $7 billion, and it was built under the Liberals for $14 billion. So how can they blame it all on Danny? Right? I think there's a lot of blame to be shared around, Then also, when it comes to the MOU, I think that we shouldn't be tied to Quebec forever and a day. And, Prime Minister Carney was talking about having nation-building projects. And I'll give him a great idea, to build a national grid that we can put our power on the grid and sell it wherever we want. There's such a thing as called wheeling of power. Mm-hmm. You put your power on the grid and you sell it wherever your customers do. If your customer's in the States, then you get the benefit, not Quebec, right? And I mean, we've been held ransom for years and years and years. Danny Williams was so excited that we were getting Muskrat Falls because finally we could go around Quebec. We didn't have to deal with them. Now, as the deal turned out, it's not so good. We had to give away a lot of power in order to get the line across the strait and all that stuff. And they were talking about our power bills going to double, but now they're saying that they're going to get $1 billion a year. How come our bills are not going to go down? Like, why do we have to pay market rate? And Quebec is getting this fantastic deal. They're getting the power for little or nothing, and we're paying through the nose for it. And they were talking about Muskrat Falls is going to double our bills. Why? And if that's what's going to happen to our bills, then if you're going to get $1 billion a year, then get some money up front. Like Danny Williams went to Ottawa when he was fighting about the oil and the proceeds from the oil. He came back with a $2 billion check. And now every time I hear people criticizing Danny, said, is Quebec waiving a $2 billion check up front? Not likely.
No, I don't suspect they ever will. I would say
1969.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who disputes we have a bad deal. We do always have to blame ourselves a little bit here too. Yeah, Quebec screwed us, but we allowed ourselves to be screwed. But that's a whole other debate for another day. I would just say, I think Fred referenced that in what he talked about. I can't remember if it was Andrew Fury or Dwight Ball or through both of them and Seamus O'Regan. There was a deal on rate mitigation that the federal government is putting money in to do that, but that does run out in the near future, or 5 years. I don't know the precise day when it runs out, but it does run out at a certain point. So that is there, but none of that is sustainable. We can't just keep going to Ottawa all the time to pay for our challenges. So I take it then, despite the challenges, you support the MOU. Where are you on the MOU? You want a better deal?
I don't know the details on the MOU,
Okay,
so I can't say
fair
yes
answer.
or no, right? Like
Okay, fair answer.
That's kind of I don't know, it's up in the air. But the problem I see with it all is that they turn around and they blame this one and blame that one, when there's lots of blame to go around, and there's no need of them putting it that way. I mean, they don't tell the story about Danny bringing back $2 billion, right? Mm-hmm. If they think that Muskrat Falls is such a great deal, then tell them pay us $2 billion up front and we'll talk.
Okay. All right. Got to leave it there, Mike. Appreciate you hanging around and offering your perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let me go to Anthony. You've been kindly waiting. Anthony, how are you today?
I'm very good. It's a beautiful day here in Newfoundland, and hopefully it'll only get better.
There's two of you today who've rightly been optimistic about the weather. Let's hope that is the case. Weather aside, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind? I was watching a program. I think the guy is some kind of a watchdog anyway, but he had videos from, I guess, a question period in the House in Ottawa. And you were talking about a mineral called antimony. I don't know if you know anything about this type of thing, but apparently it's used in bullets, probably bombs, night vision, and other things that all armies must have.
Okay.
And in Canada, we only had one mining, one area where it was being mined, and that's in Beaver Creek here in Newfoundland.
Oh, is that right?
Apparently. Yes, and apparently the Liberals sold it to China for $30 million, and China has shut it down. And antimony at one time was $5,900 per ton, and after, China, I think, is the largest maker of it type of thing, right? And it's gone up to $60,000 a ton type of thing. Now, with Carney putting all this money back into our military and something like that, don't you think that would be something that our military would profit from type of thing, or even our province type of thing, right? This is the first time I hear this type of thing.
Yeah.
You never know what's going on in Ottawa, right?
Yes, you could wake up in the morning, it'd be one thing, and by the time you have a coffee, it's another. By the time you get to 10:30, it's another. All true, Anthony. I think. Let me comment on it this way. I think there's. You've heard the current Premier VOCM, say this, that there is, the province is pushing really hard, according to him, and I see also other evidence that the federal Liberals are doing this too, to get more military investment in Newfoundland. I do. So that could also be in our resources. I know from other sources that the U.S. military, take away all the Trump element, the people who actually think long-term in the United States military are very much interested in all that Newfoundland has to offer again, as if it were, the 1940s when we were a very popular place because of our geographic location and what we have under our grounds and under trees and our rocks. So who knows? I'll dig into this a bit more. I'm glad you raised it. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, Toby, I hope you will look into it and get back or put it out there somewhere type of thing, so it's a better understanding, not only for Canadians, for Newfoundlanders, because I don't know, I've talked to a few people, and antimony, what the hell is that type of thing? Nobody knows what it is. But we're currently said now that China is a strategic partner type of thing. You gotta wonder type of thing. Never mind Muskrat Falls type of thing. This antimony mine could be worth a lot of money, right? And somehow can we retrieve that back from China?
That's. I'm going to thank you for raising this, Anthony. I will have a look at it myself. Good constructive conversation, and very optimistic about the weather. I'm going to be infused with your optimism. Thank you, sir. You have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, and I'll call back in when I hear something else.
Yeah, please do share. All right, that's kind of fascinating. I just want to build on what I said to Anthony. There is, I do a lot of work in the defense space, and the Americans really are looking at Newfoundland and Labrador, not from the linguistic perspective of like Greenland, we're going to take it over, but recognizing the strategic partnership opportunities and that exist for us, whether it's in Stephenville or Gander or Goose Bay or St. John's and the many Argentia. This Newfoundland and Labrador, to imbue some optimism, is well positioned right now in this very difficult global world to yet again take advantage of difficult circumstances. So we all want the difficult circumstances to go away, but while they exist, we have a chance for some new, or what is new is what is old is new again, or something like that. Anyway, I messed that up entirely because I got to get some more tea. Let's take a break. Back with more of your calls. Last half hour of Open Line coming up.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
All right, I got breaking news. I hear that my caller and friend Tony is going to say good things about the Liberals. Is that true, Tony?
Yes, Tim, you know as it is.
It's not April Fool's Day today, Tony. That was a few days ago. How are you? What's on your mind?
Oh, I'm great. Fred made my day with a joke of the day when he said he was in the power for the people. It's just amazing. Here he is, a guy that, when you talked about the MOU, Tim, he was on your line a number of times there within the last couple of months saying about how the MOU was just MOU. They were negotiating. It could go either way, and if it wasn't satisfactory, they weren't going to vote on it. They were voting no. So what all of a sudden changed now, the negotiations were still ongoing. So what changed now that he knows all about it? And now it's a big panic that we should sign with Quebec. That's how you give stuff away when you're panicked that, the deadline is up and you got to sign it right away. That's how you give stuff away, and Liberals are famous for that. It's just amazing the way they get on. They're saying now, the deadline is coming up. If somebody wants power, they needs it, no matter what month it is. The idea is getting the best you can for it. They need the power. We own the water, so there's only common sense to me. For Fred.
Well, the only thing I would say, sorry, Tony. The interruption I would just make of it in terms of the MOU and the now is I think it has more to do with the fact that at one point at least from Fred's perspective, there were two willing partners with the Fury government and the Hogan government in Francois Legault, and now that's all gone and timing still mattered. But you're right, it's ultimately what gets signed and so forth. It seems to me, unless something changes dramatically, and maybe it does, that the MOU in its current form appears to be dead despite whatever work the WACM government is doing to review it right now.
I think we're going to come back with an amazing deal, like we did with Beta North. Right now we got Fred Hutton, he was give that hotel. We could have had it for $3 million. He paid $21 million for a 3-year lease, and then spent about another almost $20 million to do it up. It was only good for 3 years, and then we either had to release it again. If we could have bought it for $3 million, and we could have had it, and what we put into it, we own it. And that's like the land they bought back from there on Kemount Road, where they bought it for the
sports center. Is that the one you mean?
Yeah, they sold it for $8 million. Then they bought it back off the same guy for over $20 million. And we had 137 acres just down the road that we owned. So for Fred to go on with that foolishness, it's unreal. The money that they've wasted. You'd say, was it Marco was building the hospitals? Who is that company building the hospitals?
I don't know specifically. Marco does a lot of construction across the region, but I don't know in this case.
Yeah. Didn't they donate $70,000 to the Liberals last year?
70-something, yeah, according to the reporting of Sarah Smelly. This is the stuff that irritates me, all right, and you can give me your opinion on it. Look, the laws allow, whether it's Marco, Danny, Ocean Choice, the Newfoundland Labrador Federation of Labor, they can donate what they want. So unless we are going to change those laws, people can whinge and complain after the fact, but no party, Conservative, Liberal, or New Democrat, has changed the laws in Newfoundland. So whine away, but if we want to do something about it, change the laws. What do you think?
Yes, I think the same thing. I mean, they had 10 years in power and they never changed it. So why would they now out the road crying, saying, we should all of a sudden now complain because Danny put over $40,000 in for Tony Wakeman, the PC party should, like I said, and like you said, so there's no rules in place, so you can put it in as much as you want. And there's no such thing as who donates for Liberals or who donates for any party in there. They got a right to do so.
Yeah, and to be fair to Marco, they also, based on what I saw, and this is a common Newfoundland practice, they donated to the PCs as well. I think $21,000. So I mean, the no rules are the no rules. Give you one more minute, Tony. What else is on your mind?
Well, when you talk about Muskrat Falls, I mean, they took over when we were on track for at that time for almost $8 billion. They were on track. They took it over in 2015. And a couple of years after that, they come back and said it was going to cost $10 billion. Then they come back and said it was going to cost, after a few years later, then it was going to cost over almost $14 billion. It was under them that this all fell apart. I mean, they wouldn't run an outhouse, but at the same time, this all fell apart. It wasn't blaming on Danny, this one. They had this for 10 years, and they went over by about 6 years. So, I mean, most of the money that was costed here, if they had to stay in power, and they had Ed Martin, they bought him out, and then they left him there till they had somebody else there. And the board that Ed Martin appointed, that was still there. They still kept board. So if it was so bad, why didn't they get rid of everybody right away? But it wasn't, because... Okay. They wanted this, and the same thing with this all comes to right now. We had to pay for it now by giving away basically Gull Island and Upper Churchill Falls and saying, well, but I mean, this is what the Liberals are famous for, giving everything away. Like, what did they do when they're in there? That's what gets me. But all the taxes they put up. I mean, they forced people right now. The first time ever we had people in tents, and they never created any jobs. I think it's only what we lost, and we lost doctors. We lost. Basically psychologists. We lost everything. Respiratory therapists. We had radiation therapists quit in 9.
Yeah, I would say on your point. I take your points. I think all governments can be blamed on the decline of the healthcare system and the challenges there. But gotta leave it there. We are going to set up an April 1st call one day where you'll say good things about the Liberals. I may have a heart attack if you do, but we'll do it. Good to talk to you, Tony. Nice to chat.
I'll say good things about the Liberals. They're gone.
Goodbye, Tony. Have a nice weekend. Okay, just before we go to our next caller, thank you for the information. It was Andrew Fury who brought in rate mitigation, got that deal with the federal government, and it runs out in 2030. All right, let's go to Ray. You got a health management issue. Go ahead, Ray. Tell us your story.
Yes, good day, Tim.
Nice to talk to you.
Yesterday, my wife had to get some prescriptions filled. And she has to put her prescriptions in like 3 weeks in advance, and we're in one of those clinics. Because our doctors are retired or gone away. So anyway, she goes in, and she has to talk to a nurse practitioner, but it's on an iPad.
Okay.
And so... everything was well, and when it was all over and settled, I said, well, where is that lady that was just talking? I thought she might be in another room in the same building. She said, oh, she's in Manitoba. Manitoba? So, okay, that's fine. But who's paying that nurse practitioner in Manitoba? Is our MCP paying her?
Yeah, I don't know how we do our alternative health service sharing, but I will find out. Either also, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I mean, there's a lot of this telehealth stuff now for which there are arrangements. Your wife didn't pay any money herself. It was covered under MCP?
I'm assuming, but I mean, that lady out there, she's a nurse practitioner. She has to get paid. Who's paid? Manitoba's not going to pay for one of
so
their,
it's like sometimes we do this with cardiac care. We pay some other jurisdictions for it. But I don't want to go too far down the line and get this all wrong. We'll see if we can find that out, Ray. It's a good question.
I mean, 3 weeks to wait to get a prescription and there's no nurse practitioner, and this is ongoing prescriptions, they should, like, the pharmacist can do it, but they can only do it for so long. Because you can't get in to see a doctor or anything. And then, but now you can 3 weeks later, but it's someone from Manitoba. I can't wrap my head around it. And our MCP has to be paying that woman, I think.
Yeah, well, they're getting paid by someone, and if you're not paying it, then and then the insurance is not paying it, then it's quite likely the government is paying it. So that would be MCP. So this wasn't an insurable service, like a privately insured service that you or your wife took advantage of yesterday?
No, it was the regular clinics, that you go to. But I still don't believe that there's no one here can do a prescription, and you got to wait 3 weeks. Within 3 weeks, you should be able to get someone.
Somebody told me today, just when we were talking about healthcare, I got a message that it's also very difficult right now at home to get blood tests, that you can't get them till the end of April. So I don't know if this is linked, if that's accurate. Again, it speaks to the...
Because she had to get blood work done too, and she has to wait quite a while. And then she called back because her blood work was supposed to be done as quickly as possible. And now... apparently, she can go back to the clinic and get it done up there within a week.
Wow.
So there, there is openings, but I don't know why we're paying out of province. Really, I know the healthcare's gone pretty bad, but now it's gone right across Canada, right out.
Well, the only thing I would say about that is if it means, and it's not the case here based on what you're telling me, but if we can get health care more quickly and it's done through an iPad and it can be done through an iPad and we can go somewhere else who's a trained professional and we're not paying for it, I'm not opposed to that, but I think as long as we have access to the health care and it's publicly insured health care and it's timely, that matters, but we want to make sure we have the capacity at home too. All right, Ray, got to leave it there. Thank you for the call. We'll dig into this for you.
Okay, Tim, thank you.
All right, take care. That was Ray. That's interesting. Anybody knows the answer to that? I'm sure I can figure that out as can Dave. But we'll take a break. John, hang tight. You can come back and be one of our last callers here on Open Line for the week. Welcome back, everybody. Last few minutes of the show. I think we've got 2 calls. We'll go to John first. John, if I rush you along, it's only because I want to get to give the other caller a chance too. So you got a few minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I really miss, I never thought I'd say it, I really miss Morris, who died, because he used to have a kickback with Tony all the time,
That's
kept
right.
Tony on a level field. But anyway,
yeah, well, go ahead.
The old saying goes, he who pays the piper calls the tune. And I think it's time for Danny to his own saying was for former politicians to keep their mouth shut and go away. So anyway, that's my comment for today, and that was quick enough.
You set a record there. All right, you have a good weekend, John. I appreciate that comment. I would just say this, and I think we've got, is it Russ who's there? Dave, we'll go to Ross. Okay, just before I go to Ross, I just say this. Danny is a polarizing figure. People love him, people hate him, people have opinions on him. The real interesting thing for me from a political perspective is that when the story becomes the person, and this is not a criticism of people's passion, the bigger story gets lost, which is, okay, 1, what are we going to do about political donations? 2, what are we going to do about the MOU? If people want to settle scores with Danny, great, but the bigger story about where to go and what we ought to be doing gets lost. But hey, this is Open Line. We'll take on any story you want to talk about. All right, Ross, you're up. You're our last caller. What do you got, sir?
Oh, thank you very much today. Listening to all your conversation, and it goes back to last year. One time I phoned into Paddy Daly.
Okay.
And they were talking about Churchill Falls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And arguing about this MOU and blah, blah, blah. And at that time, I suggested to Paddy Daly that we as Newfoundlanders should have a say in it, a referendum. And
Lo and behold, that's what we're having. Now, I think that with Baden Ord, it should be the same thing. There should be a referendum. The people of Newfoundland and Labrador should cast a vote on what goes through. Today, as it was last year, they talked about Joey Small. They talked about Danny Williams. They talked about Clyde Wells. They talked about everything. That's all gone in the past. Mm-hmm. Give the people of Newfoundland a chance to voice their opinion. And next year, this time, you won't be getting all this about the politicians. That's all I got to say.
Well, I don't know about that, Ross.
All it does is takes away from the conversation because you're blaming this and blaming that and blaming somebody else.
Because we got to look in the mirror, too, to your point. Can I just ask you this one question? I got one question for you. So I hear you on referendums, and you're right that the current Premier VOCM, has said there will be one on Churchill Fall or on the MOU or whatever version of the MOU he's going to bring to the people. Isn't there a danger, though, if we bring every big policy to a referendum, that what's the point of having politicians then if we have to have MOUs when we elect them to negotiate those deals? What do you think about that?
Well, my feelings on that is, what's the point to elect a politician and they cross the floor? They elect themselves on morals and whatever, and then they walk across the floor, so the people don't have their voice heard. And this is why referendums are very important, because right now all the politicians are doing is filling their own pockets.
All right.
You can take that whatever way you like, but
I'll take it as your impassioned opinion. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, there you go. This is why referendums are very important, because politicians are doing what they like and blah, 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 blah. And it's not the voice of the people is not being heard anymore because politicians are doing whatever they want to do.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. You're most certainly got a passionate voice on that, Ross. You have a good weekend.
Yes, and you too, and thank you for taking my call.
Good to talk to you, sir.
All right,
you have a wonderful weekend as well. I will just, push back a little bit on that. And I could have kept Ross on for that, but I'm sure he's not surprised to hear this opinion. I think most politicians, though it may not be obvious to us, are in it for the right reasons, that they are trying to make a difference and that they do care, regardless of what party they're in, regardless of what they, may do in the House of Assembly or the House of Commons to perform, that it is not an easy job. You don't make a lot of money at it, let me tell you that, though it's a better salary, to be fair, than some other people get. So I know it's popular to rain on the politicians, and sometimes they make it very easy for us to do all of this, but the line your pocket stuff, certainly there have been cases of that in the past. Ross is not wrong, but that isn't the truth that I have seen in different places as people are involved in politics. What I most often see are people working their guts out for things they believe in, trying to do the best they can in public service and the like. I just want to expand on that referendum point. And I get Ross's point that if you've lost confidence and they're big deals for your province, then you should have a referendum. And certainly we've had referendums before in Newfoundland and Labrador on schools and other things. We've had referendums about joining Canada. We've had referendums in Canada about constitutional agreements and changes. And sometimes maybe they are merited, but we can't delegate decision-making to us constantly going to referendums. And I don't know if Ross was arguing that, but he did state two cases that are front and center, Baden Ord and the like. Frankly, we have to wait for it. Trust politicians every so often to make decisions that are in the best interest of us. We elect them to do so.
I didn't get a chance to play it, and maybe I'll get Dave to save it and for me for Monday when I go back to my show, the Tim Power Show. But great, because Ross touched on this. Floor crossing. We're still watching to see if there's going to be more floor crossing federally. As I said at the beginning of the show, there are reports from the CBC that there are as many as nine MPs, assumedly conservative MPs, in conversation with the Liberals about crossing the floor. But I talked to Alex Marlin yesterday about how floor crossing should be managed, and Alex has studied this. He's written strongly and thoughtfully about this. I'll see if I can play that Monday for you. Have a listen on Monday afternoon to that, because I think he's got a better remedy than people saying step down, have a by-election. By-elections are expensive propositions, and having them frequently, I don't know if it's in our best interest, particularly if the turnout is low, as it often is in by-elections. But listen to all of that. All right. Got a few thank yous to put out here in the minute or so that I have left. First of all, thank you to you guys. It is always so much fun to do this show because you get all kinds of interesting topics. You deal with the challenges that people are facing. You try to help them as best you can. That makes this program special. We get to talk about everything from Iran to whoever's paying for MCP services, to issues with houses, to issues with people just trying to get by the day. There's lots of kindness on this program. There's lots of controversy on this program. There's lots of cut and thrust on this program, and it makes it special. It's a great spot. I want to thank Dave Williams. He is fantastic and does such a good job running this show. Greg Smith, everybody here at VOCM who make this a fun experience when I get to sit in. I say this all the time, but it is true. This is the provincial conversation, and it is a deep honor to sit in this chair and oversee that conversation every time I get to do it. Thank you for listening. For now, I'm Tim Powers. Encourage you to listen to our show in the afternoons at 4 p.m. Listen to Zach Power, who's on this afternoon. Have an awesome weekend. Take care.